Welcome back to my channel, Statistics for Applied Linguistics. I'm Dr. Marnie Menegra, and in this video today, we are going to look at how to report a t-test. So this is part of the results section, and we're going to look at how to do the write-up. I have a different video on which t-test do I choose and how to do each of the different types of t-tests in JASP. This video shows how to do the write-up for the results section. So if you remember the empirical cycle of research, we've got observation, induction, deduction, testing, and evaluation, and this is a circle. Now, observation is the background information section of a thesis, where we create the idea and the research hypothesis based on information or patterns. Induction is the creation of the hypothesis, which we tend to find at the end of the background information section or chapter 1. Deductions is where the hypothesis is transformed into a prediction, and we're going to look at how to test that in the method section. The testing itself is where the hypothesis is tested. If it is confirmed, it is provisionally supported. If it is not confirmed, it is rejected and then adjusted. The testing is reported in the results section. Now, in the evaluation, the results are interpreted in terms of the hypothesis. In the results section, we don't interpret the results. We are only giving the results. So we're going to show the data. We're going to show the results of the tests. And in the discussion section to follow, we are going to interpret the results in the form of the hypothesis. Okay, so here's an example of the results section. Now, when you're writing the results section, what you would want to do is you would want to look at what might be the possible subsections of this chapter. So here, this student had written an introductory paragraph saying, this chapter presents the results of the statistical tests, descriptive analyses, and coded qualitative data. The findings of the tests and analyses are associated with the data from section A of the questionnaires are presented first. So notice the next section is section A. And then she's going to follow with sections B and C respectively. So there's an organization here, but the introductory chapter lets the reader know what is to follow. Now, here's another question. Do I use t-test with a hyphen or t-test without? And you are going to see variations in different articles that you read in JASP that uses a hyphen. So here's the rule. Technically, if you're using this as an adjective, you would use the hyphen. So an adjective meaning that a noun is going to follow. So as the example, the t-test results show. Results is the noun and t-test is modifying that. So we're going to use a hyphen. Or the t-test analysis indicates, again, we've got the hyphen here. However, if you're using t-test as a noun, it should be written without a hyphen, such as an independent samples t-test was conducted. Okay, so what would we then need to do for the write-up? Now, here's the output in JASP. And of course, to write up the t-test in APA, you need the means and the standard deviation. So this is why in the JASP videos for the different types of t-tests, I said to grab the descriptives. You need this for the write-up. So here we have the mean and the standard deviation. And this is for an independent samples t-test. We wouldn't have two different groups for one sample t-test. Now, you would also want to write the outcome with the mean and standard deviation and then use the formula T, degrees of freedom, equals T statistic, and then P and the p-value. So we get the T statistic right over here, the degrees of freedom up here, and the p-value here. And then finally, you're going to report the Cohen's d, and you need to say whether the effect size is small, medium, or large. And then you're going to say whether you will reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis, or if you will reject the alternative hypothesis in favor of the null hypothesis. Remember, a good researcher will always state their hypotheses. So here's an example for a one samples t-test. The students performed higher than the national average. Mean equals 89, standard deviation equals 3. So this is the mean and the standard deviation for the students in the class that we were testing. And the results were significant. T, we've got the degrees of freedom is 32, and then this T statistic is 2.8 0.56, comma, p is less than 0.001 with a low Cohen's d effect. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. You don't need to say what the Cohen's d effect is here, but you can if you like. Now, how does this look for an independent samples t-test? The students in the experimental group, we've got the mean equals 89, standard deviation equals 4, had higher scores on the test than students in the control group. Mean equals 73, standard deviation equals 5, and the results were significant. T, degrees of freedom, is 38, the T statistics 3.568, and P is less than 0.001 with a high Cohen's d effect. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. So here, because we have two groups, we're going to say the experimental group with their mean and standard deviation, and also the control groups. We have to give the means and standard deviations of each group before we give the T statistic. Now, for a paired samples t-test, it's going to look similar to an independent samples t-test. So the results from the pretest, mean equals 23, standard deviation equals 2, and the post-test, mean equals 56 and standard deviation equals 4, shows that the students performed higher after the collaborative writing task, and the difference between the tests is significant. T, degrees of freedom, is 31, equals 2.589. P is less than 0.001 with a medium Cohen's d effect. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis. Okay, so this is a paired samples t-test with a pretest post-test design. Now, here's an example in a thesis. The data from the paired samples t-test, this student used the hyphenated. It should not technically be hyphenated here, but for the specific dimensions of intercultural competence is summarized below with respect to the attitudes dimensions, which assess the extent. Now, in this case here, she's giving the mean and standard deviation to the post-questionnaire mean, standard deviation, and the t-test. There should be a space between the P and the equal sign and then right after. But she also gave the contingency table here. Now, technically, because she has the write-up here, this contingency table should be in the appendix. Now, here's a t-test error. So we've got a student who put in a contingency table, pre-test to post-test, t-test, degrees of freedom, and p.069. The paired samples t-test also conducted in the groups of the pre-test, post-test question. Each question was tested since each question targets specific thematic group. And so when she's writing this up here, as mentioned before, p-value less than 0.05 is considered to be statistically significant. The write-up here is not done correctly. And the contingency table isn't referred to properly. Here's another error in a master's thesis where a student did a t-test for every single question. The problem with doing a t-test for every single question is that there's not enough data for any of this to be statistically significant. So this comes to the end of how to write up a t-test. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.